Hi guys. Well, as you guys all know, Batman has a wide range of villains in his rogues gallery, and today I just want to talk about my personal top 10 favorite Batman villains. Now, this is just, my personal opinion and my personal thoughts. You guys can give me, your top 10 favorite villains down in the comment section below. So, this list was really hard because, there's a lot of, Batman villains out there, and I personally like, all of them. And, to limit them to 10, top 10 personal favorite villains and actually putting them in, order which one's better than who or who do I like more was a bit tough for me. And I tried doing this video like beforehand, and I had to start rearranging some characters because I found out, some more information because, I have to do my research on these characters. I can't just say like, oh, I like this character because he's cool. But, I did my research and I know fairly enough about these villains in order to make a top 10 list. So, and also I love all these, villains on this list. It was really tough for me. So, there's not any hate towards any of these villains if they get a lower number or whatnot. I love all of them in general. So let's start off with 10 through 6 today. So starting off with number 10, we have Jason Todd. The Red Hood. So the reason why he is number 10 on this spot is because of, his backstory towards becoming the Red Hood. In some ways is really, really messed up. Because, as we all know, how he became the Red Hood was actually in a story arc called A Death in the Family, where the Joker captured Robin and started to beat him up with a crowbar. You can actually watch this this animated movie. Actually, is called Batman Under the Red Hood. It's an animated movie. They made an animated movie based off the comic books. But yes, when I was watching the animated movie, seeing Robin get beat up with the crowbar was more disturbing than actually seeing it in the comic books. So seeing that happen, and after, there was a gigantic explosion, and, the fans had to decide whether or not Jason Todd got to live or not. And, most people didn't really like Jason Todd, so in the end, Jason Todd ended up dying. So, yeah, and after that, he got revived back by Lazarus Pit, and he came back with a bit of screw looses in his head. So it was a bit nuts and crazy, so he decided, to take up the mantle as a Red Hood, and started to, cause trouble in Gotham City, and then later on Batman found out, who the Red Hood was, and, all hell broke loose for Batman. Now, the reason why Jason Todd is on, the number 10 spot, and I do, like Jason Todd's characters, because he's, pretty badass, but also is because of the way he impacts Batman. Though his story, backstory to becoming the Red Hood was a bit messed up, it's really how Jason Todd, basically, affected Batman for his, in his death. Because, before Jason Todd, we had Dick Grayson as, the first Robin. Now, the reason why, Batman took in Dick Grayson was because he saw, a bit of himself, in Dick when his parents died. So that's why he took in Dick, and, he was like, oh, I'm going to teach him how to fight crime and, fight for justice, because I see him, a bit of myself in him when his parents died. And as for Jason Todd, he was a street rat, he was trying to steal the Batmobile's tires, and Batman found him, in rags, and he decided, this kid probably needs my help. He needs some guidance, So he took him under his wing and, made him his Robin. Now, there's a lot of reasons why Batman could have took Jason Todd under his wing was because, he was afraid that potentially Jason Todd could become a criminal or crook or villain that sooner or later Batman would have to fight against. So he took him under his wing and tried to teach him how to be good. But in his death, it greatly affected Batman in his way that, he was pretty defensive of how, who was going to become his sidekick. Even when Tim Drake came along, he pushed Tim Drake aside at first, not wanting him to be, his sidekick, because he was afraid that if he dragged any more, kids or teenagers into his personal war with, crime and justice, then, they would end up dying just like Jason Todd. And, to this day, Batman, has blamed himself for Jason Todd. Even though he's, alive again, he still blames himself for failing him, for not being able to protect him, and for letting him die for, working for him. And that's why Jason Todd takes number 10 on this spot. Coming at number 9, we have the Riddler. Now, I personally like the Riddler because he's personally generally really smart. You know that the Riddler leaves clues to, the next bank he's gonna rob or the next person he's gonna murder. He leaves all these different riddles and clues that leave, that's for Batman and Robin to solve. And, generally they're all very hard and very, really cryptic and awesome to actually try to figure out, and when actually you figure it out, it just blows your mind away. And that's what I like about Edward Nygma. He's very, very smart, but his smartness is a bit of a downfall because he always wants to try to be better than Batman. He thinks he's way smarter than Batman, and his obsession of being smarter than Batman really doesn't bring him down as a villain, but really brings him down as in it brings him down to his downfall most of the time. But generally speaking, I really like smart characters. And, Edward Nygma is one of the smart villains in, the Rogues Gallery. He's really, really intelligent, and I really like that. I've always liked smart characters because, I love the way they think and how they can actually plan out, their ideas for, robbing, not robbing banks, but that's just for villains in general. But really, I like Edward Nygma. He's very smart, and I love the Riddler. I love his riddles. And yeah. So coming at number 8 here, we have Talia al Ghul. Now, we all know who Talia al Ghul is. She is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, and, she is madly in love with Batman or Bruce Wayne. And we all know that, if you guys don't know this by now, they have a son together. Talia and Batman, actually did it, and Damien came out, who is actually the current Robin. Now, the reason why Talia takes number 8 at this spot is because, generally speaking, of how she actually, deals with Batman and Ra's al Ghul, her father. Now, at some point, she is always stuck in the middle between whether or not to help Bruce or Batman, or, Ra's al Ghul, her father. Now, she loves both of these men a lot, and it's very hard and difficult for her to choose between these two, because sometimes you would always, have them pit, one against the other, like Ra's versus Batman. And whenever they're fighting against each other, usually Talia is always stuck in the middle. And sometimes, she would always sometimes choose, her lover over, her father. But sometimes she has to obey her father and follow her father's rules. And she yet still loves her father, so sometimes she does choose her father over Bruce. But it's a very complicated situation, whether or not Talia should go for her father or should she go for Bruce. It's very complicated, and that's what I like about her. And her relationship with Bruce Wayne is very, very romantic, They're very close together and very tight, together, That's why I like Talia al Ghul in general. And she's a, sort of a force to be reckoned with because she's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, and you all know who Ra's al Ghul is. He's a force to be reckoned with too, living for 600 years, but I'll get to him later. But yeah, Talia al Ghul, can fight on her own. She's pretty smart and intelligent too, just speaking. But yeah, next up on number 7, who actually won against Talia al Ghul just by a tiny bit, was Catwoman, or also known as Selina Kyle. Now, for me personally, I think Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne or Batman belongs together really, really well. Their relationship is on and off, and though, people think on and off relationships are annoying, I find their relationship in general very intriguing because, sometimes Catwoman would decide whether to be good or evil. And speaking of that, it turns her out to be, make her out to be actually an anti-hero, because sometimes she would actually help Bruce fight crime or, do a good deed every now and then. But sometimes she slips off that edge of good and jumps back towards the villain side and decides to, what the heck, I deserve a break. I did some good deeds. Maybe I should steal a random jewel or really pricey, expensive jade cat or whatever, I deserve this. Sometimes she jumps towards being a villain, but normally speaking, I really like Selina Kyle's character. She's an anti-hero who jumps between being good or evil, which is really great. And her relationship with Bruce Wayne, really great too. You know, I really like that relationship between those two. And yeah, you guys can have your own opinions on who, you know, Bruce belongs to, either Talia or Selena, but for me, I'm going with Selena. But this, you know, the whole Bruce relationship thing doesn't really, just because I like their, you know, her relationship with Bruce, doesn't mean that I like her more than Talia. I'm just saying, as in, basically her character was an anti-hero, you know. First she was developed as a villain, but later on developed, you know, being a good, sort of good hero later on, and then still jumping between both good and evil. Yeah, that's what I like about her character. Now, coming up at number 6, you can't have a top 10, you know, favorite villains without this one villain here. This villain is actually Bane, the most sanest villain out of all the Rogues Gallery in Batman's universe. Well, because, you know, really, Bane, is he really insane? Is he crazy? Is he like the Joker? Is he like Harley Quinn? Is he like Poison Ivy? Well, no. Besides his addiction towards Venom, he really isn't that mentally crazy, you know? He just has an addiction for Venom. He's not really just like he doesn't really belong in Arkham Asylum. But let's get into his character. Now, when Bane was introduced, he had the plan to actually break the Bat. He wanted to break him. And, you know, he was very smart about it, you know? He realized that, you know, most villains would go through a full frontal assault and try to attack Batman. Just out there, you know, just get out there and attack Batman. And never plan out there, you know, how they're going to defeat him. But you know, for Bane, he did plan it out. You know, he said he was going to break the Bat. So what he did was he devised a plan where he would release some of the criminals or insane people from Arkham Asylum and release them into Gotham City, creating chaos and running amok and causing trouble for, you know, Bruce or, you know, Batman. And, you know, Bane slowly crept up towards Batman. Well, not really, generally speaking. But, you know, he still implemented his plan, and he slowly and got towards getting to Batman, and then finally breaking the Bat. And to me, I found that very generally very smart. Bane is not a dumb character, even though he might have a lot of muscles, and he's, you know, how people say, like, oh, you know, if you have a lot of muscles, you're not really smart, you know, whatnot. But, like, seriously, Bane is pretty smart, you know. He is a smart character, if people don't know that, you know. Don't just think that, oh, just because he has muscle, he's just really strong, that's the only way he can take out Batman. No, he actually planned a way in order to break the Batman's back. And that's why Bane takes the number 6 spot on my personal top favorite Batman villains. So this is part 1 of the video. Part 2 will be coming up next with 5 through 1. So talk to you guys later.